Hello everybody and welcome back to Punting Pioneer. I'm Corbin Hosler and I am here to celebrate the return of Oath of Nissa. Now, I have to say, I've played with this card for a pretty long time. I really enjoyed it in Modern when you would play a Planeswalker deck with Doubling Season and you would try to ultimate your Planeswalkers right away thanks to the Doubling Season and the Oath of Nissa to tie it all together. So, I love this card. I was sad to see it go the first time around in Pioneer, but now it's back. It's back, and as a result, we're going to play this mono-green Planeswalkers deck that Lewis and Jay took to first place in a Pioneer Challenge last week. So, Oath of Nissa, going to find some Planeswalkers. It also finds, let's see here, creatures or lands, and this mono-green deck has plenty of them. Now, this is a deck that was really powerful in the beginning of Pioneer, one of the first super strong decks, and it's all thanks to Nykthos. The ability to pay 2 and then tap this to add mana equal to your devotion in a deck like this that is just chock full of mana symbols, all of which happen to be green. It's extraordinarily powerful, and Oath of Nissa helps you find it. That's one of the things that Oath of Nissa is really good at. So, moving on, Castle Garenbrig also helps us cast his big things, but our deck is pretty straightforward. It is not so much a beatdown deck, not so much a ramp deck per se. It's just a green value deck with Planeswalkers, and that's pretty neat. So, the 8 mana dorks you've come to expect in Pioneer, the Oath of Nissa's Burning-Tree Emissary, banned in Historic, legal in Pioneer. This just helps Devotion, helps you get some big turns. This keeps the gas coming, or rather at least lets you set up the gas anyways on top of your deck, the Jadelight Ranger. The Voyaging Satyr in here. Now, this is another mana dork if you only have Force. If you have a Nykthos, though, it does a heck of a lot more, and that's why Voyaging Satyr is a one-of in this list. Now, the Planeswalker suite here, Nissa Who Shakes the World, you know you've been terrorized by this one for a while. Vivien Arkbow Ranger also been getting some play in Standard, and of course, Karn, the Great Creator. At one point, the terror of Modern. Now just a value card in this deck, and we'll get to that in a minute. We have a Karn board over there. So Walking Ballista, Voracious Hydra, rounded out as mana sinks. Onto the sideboard, remember, Karn, in addition to shutting down activated abilities from your opponent's artifacts, can -2 to get an artifact you own from outside the game or in exile, put it into your hand. So that means from our sideboard. So we have a Karn board here that we can wish for. I pull it all the way out because there is a big mana cost here. Now, obviously, these are not artifact cards. They are just, in fact, colorless. So these are actual sideboard cards here. The Emrakul and the Ulamog, when we go up against slow, grindy decks, control decks, etc., that we can expect to get that much mana against. So Voracious Hydra, just rounding out things here. Great Henge. This you can search for. This is a great one. I've been playing a lot of this card in Standard, at least when this was a playable card in Standard, maybe right after Throne of Eldraine came out. Anyways, I had a lot of fun with the Great Henge. This is a cool one. You can search for that. You can also search for your Walking Ballista. You can search for your Verdurous Gearhulk if you need to get big creatures. This is a green creature, but it is also an artifact, so it counts. Scavenging Ooze does not, but hey, it's a Scoos. So, writing out the artifacts here, Meteor Golem, you destroy anything, except for a land anyways, a non-land permanent with the old Meteor Golem here. But if your opponent is ramping, maybe they're trying to combo, play a bunch of spells, get the old God-Pharaoh statue, suppose your opponent's control costs 2 more to cast. Then, of course, we're writing things out here, Damping Spheres, where you want them, just a good sideboard card, and the Skysovereign, when it enters the battlefield, deals 3 damage to a creature, and you can crew it up and get on in there. Skysovereign, I remember this one fondly. Back in Standard, it was pretty neat. So everybody, there you go. It is mono green Planeswalkers. Oath of Nissa has returned, and we have to do an homage here on Punting Pioneer. I'm Corbin Hosler. Let's jump into the games. All right, here we go. Jumping into a game. Our opponent, I actually recognize my opponent from the Merfolk Discord. It does exist if you're a fan of the fish like I am. The Merfolk Discord is a thing, and my opponent is a noted fish player. So that said, we are on the play here. We'll see if they're playing Merfolk this time around. And we have an Elvish Mystic to lead off on. Now, the rest of our hand, maybe not so great, but you'll see we do have that Nykthos. We've got that Nissa to ramp to. If we can find a way to make this a turn 3 Nissa, perhaps, that would be insane. Looks like my opponent's on some kind of Spirits deck, though. That is certainly... I asked them if I was getting fish before the match, and they said the closest thing to it in Pioneer. And I actually have to tell you, Mono Blue Spirits probably does count as pretty close to that. Okay, so now we have some options here. I think I'm going to be greedy. I think I'm going to lead with the Oath of Nissa, see if we find another mana dork. That way we could play the mana dork and we can set up for this turn 3 Nissa. That's certainly the plan. I mean, it's the Oath of Nissa, it's the Nissa, it's the combo. You got to play it, right? So let's see what we can hit here. I mean, not my favorite stuff, frankly, but we will take the Hydra here. Now the question is whether or not I want to trade my Ballista for the Mausoleum Wanderer, and I think at the very least I do want to go ahead and play it for one. It costs more to change it later, but let's see what my opponent does, because what I'm concerned about is my opponent playing a Supreme Phantom, turning the Wanderer into a 2/2, getting all of our, forcing us to spend 4 mana to get off the board later, that sort of thing. So we'll see what they're up to here. Just another Mausoleum Wanderer. I think that I have to blow this up. I think given our hand, we just have to not get overwhelmed here. So let's see what happens. All right, we got it. Fair enough. I mean, we traded 2 mana for 1 mana from them, but heck, Mausoleum Wanderer is a great card, and we still developed our board. It didn't necessarily cost us because we're ahead 1 mana thanks to this Elvish Mystic, and now I guess I just continue. I'm kind of thinking about playing this for 2 and just fighting the Mausoleum Wanderer and just keeping... Here's my thought. Make sure I understand this card correctly. This is the fight one, yes? Yeah. Okay, so my thought is that we're going to just try to keep their board clear, which is very difficult to do, especially, I mean, heck, we're playing a mono green deck, and here we are just playing control. But look, we can fight the Mausoleum Wanderer, just keep the board clear, just do whatever we have to do to keep the board clear. Then we get to untap, we get to play Nykthos, we get to play our Nissa. So, I mean, frankly, the game should end on turn 3 here. This was, or turn 4, I guess. A very powerful start for us. This was seems like probably a decent matchup for us, especially if we're going to be on the play. All right, let's see what they're up to here. I was going to say, if we're on the play and have the turn 1 Mana Dork, that was actually a nice play by my opponent here. They're going to Nebelgast Herald in my upkeep. I assume to tap down my Elvish Mystic. Yep. So this actually, well, I say that. It was a good effort by them to prevent me from casting this Nissa anyways. Unfortunately, Nykthos is going to do what Nykthos does, and as a result, we have exactly enough to play Nissa, take it up, and go to town here. So, gotta say, corner turned. We'll get on in there, knock our opponent down to 15. This was silly. This was a pretty sick start. I mean, think about this. We had 2 pieces of removal for our opponent. Our opponent interacted with us, and we still went turn 4 Nissa. I mean, we just have complete control of this game. This deck is capable of some really powerful stuff, and I have to say, I did kind of question, like, the Voracious Hydra. So, yeah, it's a great mana sink, but, really? But you know what? Heck, the ability to just fight creatures, I mean, that gives your mono green deck removal. That's pretty neat. Anyway, so our opponent is pretty clearly holding up what looks like a Spell Queller over there. Or another Nebelgast Herald. Rattle Chains, sure, whatever. I'll stop pretending I know what they know what cards they might have. It did look like it might have been a Spell Queller. When they first passed last turn, I thought they might have had a Queller. And we were going to just beat it by playing a 5-drop. Queller only gets CMC 4 or less. But turns out we don't really have to worry about much of that. We'll just keep popping off here with our Nissa. Now, this is an interesting... Oh, okay. Well, my opponent just doesn't want me to... They're going to minimize the damage anyways. There's a Llanowar Elves, so that doesn't do a ton. It is neutral with the Nykthos, though. And remember, our forests make double mana. I have to not forget that. Alright, let's think this one through then. I have access to an amount of mana. Frankly, it's quite a bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 if I activate the Nykthos right now. 8, 9. I mean, I think I could just play out my entire hand, to be completely honest. So that's what I'm going to look at here. Start by plussing on this one. Alright, now I'll use the floating mana to play this. Now I'll activate this, and that should give me 1, 2. So I'm going to have 1 left over, and I'm going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to have 8 mana, which is conveniently enough to play both of these and get in with a second Nissa land. Yeah, I'm in. Seems pretty good. Alright, here we go. 8 mana. Let's play the Jadelight. Because this way, if we hit land, we actually get to play another land. Ooh, undo that. I want to attack with that thing. Alright, let's explore twice. Oh, Walking Ballista. What do you say? I'll keep that one on top. The Dream. Even hit our land here. So, alright, another Nissa hits the battlefield. I gotta make sure which... I think it's this one. I'm gonna feel pretty bad if... I guess wrong. But I guess our opponent's gonna make it easy for us and just scoop. Well, I have to say, that one went pretty well. That felt like that was according to plan. Let's see what we have after sideboarding here. It probably gets better for them than it does for us if I had to guess, but we'll see. Frankly, I'm not entirely sure what I want. I feel like the Ulamog wouldn't be terrible. The Voracious Hydra, I think, is good here. As you can see, fighting worked out pretty well for us last time. I don't think the Karns are very good. I won't lie, I'm not super familiar with this card. I have not played this card a lot. And while I do like the ability to go get stuff, it seems to me that against a deck playing nothing but spirits that fly, many of them at instant speed, probably not the best place for our Karn. Yeah, the Gearhulk is an interesting one. The statue, the golem, the Great Henge. I don't know. You know, the Great Henge is nice because it could cost very little mana. It's definitely not going to get spell quellered. I'm not really sure what their counter magic suite looks like. I'm going to not do it, though. We have plenty of mana sinks already. I'm just going to roll with this. I mean, well, I think this is a good matchup for us. I mean, game one certainly looked pretty good. This is a keep. And this lane really stood out to me. Look at this thing. Now, I know I'm trolling a little bit here. I chose every different art I could of for us this week since we're playing so many. But I have to say, this is one of those cards. I started playing maybe a year or two. I was pretty new when Zendikar came out, the original Zendikar back in 2010, 2011. And at that time, full art lands were not this thing you saw every other set. It was something very rare. It was just unhinged and unglued at that point. They come out with these, and this crazy thing with its bright colors, amazing in foil, caught my eye. Pretty cool. Okay, well, and that, with that said, I guess we'll play it first and run this out. Spectral Sailor, sure. Spectral Sailors are an interesting card that's sort of made its way into these older formats. I think I even played it a couple weeks ago here on Punting Pioneer, but it's a spirit. It's a pirate, I guess you want to try some pirate tribal. But it's more than that. It's just the ability to flash. It's just so free, basically. It costs 1 mana. You have 5 mana, it draws you a card. You know, it really just kind of fits the niche. And it wouldn't in a more powerful format, right? Like, I don't see this card becoming a powerhouse in Modern or anything like that. But here in a slightly, you know, less insane format of Pioneer, Spectral Sailor does some nice work. It's a cool card. That said, our opponent is just doing the thing over there with the Supreme Phantom. Now, actually, I guess I don't know what to do. I think I'm going to play Walking Ballista and Llanowar Elves. It puts something onto the battlefield at least. I will certainly attempt to resolve a turn 3 Nissa next turn, and hope that that's good enough. I mean, look, if my opponent is passing back with Spell Queller here, which is a completely reasonable thing for them to do, Spell Queller is an enormously powerful card. It's not going to work out great against the Nissa, though. It's gonna work out okay, and they can flash it in, and then they'll be coming in for what, 3, 5, 6? I mean, they'll actually just straight kill the Nissa. But I don't want to play a 4-drop. I don't want to play something that can get spell quellered here. I'd rather play the Nissa, make them figure out what they're going to do if they want to get it off the battlefield, and then go from there, I guess. So, yeah, I mean, I'm going to commit. Let's just go for it and see what happens. I mean, I'm obviously going pretty hard on spell queller here. If it's something else, they're going to get us. Like this, Lofty Denial. As a matter of fact, I played this deck a while back. This card is insane. I played this deck a couple weeks ago, although mine was mono blue. I'm not quite sure what their port towns are for. But yeah, Lofty Denial is not one we were ever going to beat with any of those spells, as it turns out. Counter target spell unless the controller pays 1. You control a creature with flying, they have to pay 4 instead. That's a good counter spell right there. That's a nice mana leak, I have to say. Meanwhile, the beatdown continues on us here. You see how important the dice roll was. That turn 3 Nissa would have crushed on the draw. Oh, I'm sorry, on the play. Alright, this doesn't do anything yet. Keep that in mind. But, guess let's just tap for the Vivien. And my opponent just clearly has a counterspell, though. It feels so bad. Yeah, just play the Jadelight Ranger instead. Because I'm feeling this is going to need to come down and fight something here. And there is the spell queller we knew was coming, so... Alright, fair enough. Cancel. Do not want to lose my mana quite yet. And unfortunately, we're one short right now from actually casting that Vivien. Yeah, I don't think there's any other way we could have done this here. Well, I guess that's that. We pass the turn. We take, or 6. We go to 6. Then we hope to revolve. Then we hope to resolve this Vivien Arkbow Ranger. Use it to fight down the Supreme Phantom, and the Ballista can shoot down something. I'm still not sure that we have a path to victory here, but that's all we can do. These things all fly. I can't even kill this. I don't even have a creature big enough to kill this. I guess we're just dead. Thinking Vivien isn't doing it. Alright, GG. That Lofty Denial was huge. Card's great. Where's my Veil of Summers? I should have had some of them in the sideboard. I don't think anything changes here, though. So that maybe I want this Meteor Golem. Man, I don't want the Meteor Golem. I want my deck as is. Our opponent just had a good hand there. They had a great 1-2-3. They beat a turn 3 Nissa from us. You know, that was that's pretty impressive. Now, that's the thing with the Spirits deck, too. And so much of the Spirits deck from experience comes down to the Lord, because oftentimes you can, if you're playing the Spirit deck, especially like a mono bluish version, the creatures are so small. They just do not kill very fast. So it can feel like you have control of the game. Then you look at the board and your opponent's just winning the race because they resolved one big thing. So that's something to keep in mind. And fortunately, in this case, we're on the side of big things. And this is another turn 3 Nissa hand. So we're going to put it to our opponent. And we're going to say, have the Lofty Denial. Or lose. Also an option. Our hand, honestly, though, this hand looks nice. We got the Nykthos, we've got the Mana Dorks, we've got the Vivien Arkbow Ranger. If this game were to play out exactly like the last one did, our opponent playing the same things, that would work out to our advantage. And I say that. It looks remarkably similar to the last game. Here comes our Walking Ballista. I think all 3 games have actually played out almost identically for us, and I'm not complaining at all. It's a great start. Put 8 Mana Dorks in your deck. Things are going to happen. There's the Supreme Phantom. All right, we will take out the Mausoleum Wanderer, though. I got to say, this might be it for my opponent, because as good as Supreme Phantom is, and I just talked about how important it is to speed up the clock, it's no Nissa who shakes the world. Not much is, though, as it turns out. Card is just so stupid. It's just so dumb. I think the actual mistake they made with Nissa, as opposed to giving Planeswalker static abilities at all, that was clearly a mistake. But why did the lands have to have vigilance? I get it, right? It's the feel good, blah, blah, blah. But look, Magic is okay when people have to make hard decisions sometimes too. All right? You shouldn't always get to have your cake and eat it too, especially on a Planeswalker that just happens to double your mana. Your force, anyways. Yeah, that's my take on it. Just pushing too much. To be fair, it's hard if you know, Wizards talks about this a lot. When they design new cards, and they do something new, like say static abilities on Planeswalkers, they have nothing to compare it to. And so much of what they do in card design, and what anybody does in any kind of game design, frankly, we're going to get Nebelgasted Herald here. Oh, Aether Gust on the Nissa, sure. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. But you have to use heuristics, or rather things that have worked in the past and were true in the past. They'll probably be true now. And the thing is, if you don't know how good static abilities are on Planeswalkers, well, then you might not have any idea that Nissa didn't need to have all this other craziness associated with it. That said, this is neutral right now, but it's positive if I do this. Yep. How sick would it have been from... I guess I couldn't have stopped us either way. I was going to say, how sick would it have been if they had just stopped us from doing that there and messed up our mana. But as it is now, here comes the Vivien Arkbow Ranger. Now, I think the choice of what to do here is probably pretty clear. I think we only lose to like Dive Down or something weird that my opponent is in all likelihood not playing. So now I will, if I do this way, lose my Vivien if my opponent has a Spectral Sailor. My opponent says, play draw really matters in this matchup. And I was just saying that. It really, really does, because this is pretty silly here. All right, I think I'm just gonna. No. That was close. I almost did damage to my own creature. All right, we'll take out the Supreme Phantom this time. And except that if my opponent has the Spectral Sailor, and I wouldn't be shocked if they do, that losing Vivien doesn't seem like such a huge deal. They'd have a tapped Spectral Sailor. We'll have the 3/3 and all these mana dorks and a Nissa to come. Meanwhile, though, they didn't have it, and that was obviously the best case scenario for us, and the one that locks up Game 3. We did it, taking it down. Oath of Nissa is back, everybody, and it's a fun one. All right, time for more Mono Green Planeswalkers. I'm on the draw, and I'll tell you, I really want to keep this hand. I do. I really want to. I'm not going to, I guess, but I wanted to. It was a nice one, and this one is not as nice. Now, I'm going to keep it, but it is significantly worse. I think, anyway. I mean, I say that. It's not worse because it has spells we can actually play that do something, but it's a lot less explosive. So that other hand, if we drew well, was going to be much more powerful, but I guess against the Thoughtseize, that would have looked pretty bad if we'd kept that 5-lander Burning-Tree. Burning-Tree Llanowar. Get Thoughtseize, lose our Llanowar Elf. I guess this works out pretty much all the same anyways. Don't know what our opponent's up to, obviously. Basic Swamp Thoughtseize, but all right, we'll see. We'll see what's up here. I have no idea what they're going to take, and the Vivien makes some amount of sense. It does allow us to have a turn 2, though. Not maybe an incredibly powerful turn 2, but not an irrelevant turn 2 either. And there's an Oath of Nissa to I'm sorry, we're on turn 1. This is turn 1. I thought we were on turn 2. I'm sorry, I'm out of it. Anyways, Oath of Nissa on turn 1. This is actually great. Because now we get to go turn 2, that's what I was talking about, Burning-Tree into Walking Ballista. It lets us have a turn 2 that impacts the board. Whereas taking, say, the Ballista or the Emissary means that we're doing nothing with that hand until turn 4, you know? So at least now we can put something into the battlefield that maybe looks like a threat on turn 2. The second Ballista is not a bad draw, I think. It could be, I guess. It depends what our opponent is playing. You know, Walking Ballistas without a ton of mana are really hit or miss. You know, they were great against the Spirits deck, maybe not so great against, you know, a mono black deck or something like that. And by this point, I would say we're probably up against Dimir Inverter, right? Our opponent's playing Dimir, and they played a Thoughtseize. They got the Fatal Push open, no doubt. Let's see what they want to do from here. Well, they're going to think about it, I guess. It's I guess if they have another Thoughtseize, the thing is they knew our hand, right? So they knew that we have Land, Burning-Tree, Walking Ballista. As a matter of fact, then we revealed a Walking Ballista at Oath of Nissa. So they know our hand. So maybe they're debating whether or not they want a Thoughtseize to get rid of one of these other pieces. Or, you know, maybe they're just going to get a drink. Maybe they didn't realize that priority. All right, I guess I'm in. Look, the hand we got is the hand we got, and that's the hand we're going to play, even if I'm not thrilled with it. So we're going to play this Burning-Tree, and then we're going to play this Ballista for 1. And at the very least, like I said, it does something. It doesn't do much, but attacking for 3 is something. And after that, we can deploy this this Mystic, this land, and then be set up for a slightly larger Ballista the turn after that. So we're going to need some help here. We'll see what is possible. I'm guessing we're going to get this Walking Ballista Fatal pushed. No, okay, well, interesting. My opponent was either debating a Thoughtseize or was actually just away from their keyboard. So let's see here. Turn 3, out of a presumed Dimir Inverter deck, just passing. Are they passing without a land? No, they're just being a good player and going to the second main phase, I guess. All right. Yeah, and now here comes the Thoughtseize number 2. So they actually were debating whether they just wanted to wait on it or not, which is smart. You know, just because you have your discard spells doesn't mean you have to play them on turn 2, right? You almost always play it on turn 1, but you don't have to play it on turn 2 if you know your opponent's key spells don't come down till later. And I guess in their case, they decided they'd rather take an extra turn, see if they can hit a Planeswalker or something. And instead, they're rewarded with just the Ballista they were always going to get. That said, I mean, is a pretty anemic attack from us. If our opponent just plays the old 6/6 Inverter of Truce here, that's going to be pretty good, I have to say. Opt, okay. Also setting up their graveyard, you know, for the upcoming Inverter of Truth. Well, we're going to spam out our hand and just hope that it's good enough. And another opt. So the good news for us is that even if we whiff on our next draw step, which is, you know, a very real possibility in a deck like this with, in addition to lands, a bunch of 1-drops like Mana Dorks that don't really do much. But it would mean that we'd have access to 5 mana. So even in that worst case scenario, we'd be able to just pump our Walking Ballista. So it's at least something. We have a plan one way or another here. And whether that plan is going to be good enough or not, I basically have no control over. This was not a game where we really got to make a lot of meaningful decisions outside of, I guess, the mulliganing. That's the way it goes sometimes, especially against a deck like Dimir Inverter, where they can have just wildly different hands, which is one of the reasons why it's such a good deck. They can play the Thoughtseize, Fatal Push, control game, and then just kill you with a 6/6 like this. Or they can play this 6/6, put this stocked 4-card graveyard back into their library, and then play a Thassa's Oracle here in a turn or two and win. So, yeah, it's a thing. Now, for us, now this is going to be interesting, I guess. I wouldn't have hated something like a Nykthos there. I do basically have to play this, but all right, we'll pump this thing up. If we can get this to a 3 before we die, I believe... No, I guess I'm wrong. There's no way to actually stop the Thassa's Oracle from killing us. Even if we were to kill it with its ability on the stack, they'd look at 0 and then win? I don't know. I guess we'll read the card. Read the card when inevitably hits play. And see if you can Walking Ballista it down. I'm not sure on that one. I had to say, it's been a hot minute since I've covered any Pioneer tournaments. The Players Tour, Brussels Phoenix, that whole thing, that was the last paper events I got to do, and the last time I had a ton of interaction with Pioneer. The recent events have been played on Arena, and they have been in Standard. So this doesn't win. This is an interesting decision for my opponent. When you use the battlefield, look at the top cards of your library, where X is your devotion to blue. Put up to one of them on top and the rest in bottom. So this doesn't really do anything, right? If X is greater than or equal to the number of cards in your library, you win the game. What am I missing? When it's a battlefield, look at the top cards. Where X is your devotion blue. They looked at 2. They have 3. Oh, I was looking at their hand. They have 2 cards in their library. Ah! Well, we weren't going to be able to do anything anyways. That's funny. Note to self and to all of you, if you're on Magic Online, this little one up here, that's the hand. This is the library. I was always dead, but I didn't have to be so confused about it, at least. Anyways, on to sideboarding. It's pretty funny. Okay, so... Yes? I don't know what to do here. Scavenging Ooze definitely... I'm really not that practiced at playing against this deck. Seems like it could go pretty slow, though. We're going to play the Emrakul the Promised In, the Ulamog. Probably not the Ulamog, but probably not the Voracious Hydra either. What do I want? Like, what the heck do I want against the 6/6... Probably this Verdurous Gearhulk. Just beat down here. I'd give something like this a shot, I guess. Frankly, I don't know. Pithing Needle does not do anything. This is activated abilities. All their abilities are triggered abilities. You know, the Skysovereign, the God-Pharaoh statue, the Meteor Golem, these are all interesting cards. The Ulamog as well. The Ulamog's got to be... Ulamog might not be better than the Emrakul. I guess I think Emrakul's the way to go, though, because we're going to end up, hopefully, if our opponent doesn't have just an insane combo hand like they did last game, with 5 or 6 mana in play and a stocked graveyard from them just harassing our graveyard, hopefully we pull off the big Emrakul. I don't think I can keep this one. It's a lot of Nissa. Nissa is good, but I don't think we can do that. This one I will keep. Holy heck. Oh, I put on bottom here. Oh, this is hard. I'll put the Burning-Tree on the bottom. There's a lot of things going through my mind there. For instance, we're on the play. A legitimate beatdown hand might get there. I considered putting the Oath of Nissa back on top. And then having the lands in the Burning Trees. I also considered putting the land back on top and having the Oath of Nissa go find another land to then, on turn 2, play out of those Burning Trees. However, I got scared off of that line by Thoughtseize. So instead, I want to have something to do on turn 4 if we're going to, keep access to mana here. So I don't know. Maybe I throw back the Vivien there and keep the triple Elvish Emissary start. In fact, that probably would have been better. Nykthos seems pretty good here, though. Let's pass a turn. My thought was that if they have board wipes or something, having 3 of them probably still loses to a board wipe. And if they don't, having 2 of them is probably still pretty good. And I don't want to throw away my late game if they just, play a Cry of the Carnarium or something like that, right? So we'll see how things go. All right, we are going to be Thoughtseize. Now, it does at least force a somewhat interesting decision on my opponent here, because if you're scared of the Burning Trees just beating you down, well, you probably have to take one, but then I have a Vivien instead. They snap take the Vivien, but now you have to deal with the 4 power on the ground. And, maybe they can, and if they can, we're probably not going to win this game anyways, but hey, maybe they can't. Okay, well, we're putting 5 power out there. Not much to do after that, unfortunately. The way it goes sometimes. All right, pass the turn. Do your worst, friend. Not a bad turn 2. If you played much Historic on Arena, you knew all about the Burning Tree on turn 2. Be turn 1 Pulp Collector, turn 2 2 or 3 Burning-Tree Emissaries, followed by a Gruul whatever thing that Zertog Goblin attack you for 2 right away, make it a 3. This deck, this Gruul deck, which is capable of some pretty unreal starts in the format. In this case, though, I guess this is a pretty fair Burning Tree getting taken down by Collective Brutality. We'll find some lands. Not lands here, rather. We have the lands. We have access to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana. Wouldn't hate drawing a Nissa. Scavenging Ooze, though. I'm down. Let's go ahead and add green. 4, play the Skoos. And I'm just going to do all this in my main phase here. We're going to go ahead and eat. Interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to eat the Collective Brutality. I think I might also eat my Burning Tree. Because here's the thing. I don't want this Scavenging Ooze to die to a -2/-2 infest Cry of the Canarian type spell. So yeah, I could just keep the Llanowars open for mana to do this at instant speed, but I also want to hit with the Llanowar Elves because every point of damage is going to matter. So I don't think that leaving them a Thoughtseize in their graveyard when we have no hand is going to mess us up against a Dimir Inverter or anything like that. So let's just go ahead and beat down. We've got the Scavenging Ooze, which is, I guess, kind of hit or miss. Emptying their graveyard can help them if they just have everything they need, but lots of times they actually end up setting up the combo with the Dimir Inverter. They load their graveyard up with particular spells, and then one of those is a Thassa's Oracle, for instance, and then that's what they do. So there's the Fatal Push. Okay. So the Scavenging Ooze is good against that line. In addition, in this case, it ended up being a 2-ish mana 3/3. Now, this might be the draw that loses us the game. The Scavenging Ooze worked. It took some of their mana. As a matter of fact, they missed a land drop over there. However, the forest off the top for us when we desperately needed to add something to the board and could have added anything. Nissa, Vivien, Karn, whatever the heck else we boarded in or have. Anything there would put us in a dominating position. Instead, we have nothing. My opponent gets to throw another removal spell at our Burning Tree. And I guess we'll go from there. I mean, they only have 4 cards in hand. They did mulligan to start the game. They're missing land drops, so unfortunately, it means their hand is gas. So we just desperately need to draw something like, say, Nissa right here. We did it! I don't want to shout into the mic, but let everyone know that this is how you do it. You call your shots, everybody. You got to call the shots, Or is it even worth drawing? Would I even want to draw a Nissa who shakes the world if I hadn't said I'm going to draw a Nissa who shakes the world? Probably not. Why even play? As a matter of fact, get in there for 3. Watch all. None of this matter anyways. Our opponent just combo us to death. What a sick draw this deck. Hey, this deck can draw lands and mana dorks, or it can draw broken planeswalkers, and that is why Oath of Nissa is so good in the deck, because it can do all of the above, creature, land, or planeswalker. And now you see why Nissa is such a silly card. Our opponent actually found the land and the answer here in the Hero's Downfall, but we still get our 3/3 to beat down. So doesn't quite work out the way they wanted to. That said, this game isn't over by a long shot. We're going to knock them down to 5 with this hit, but look, we have absolutely nothing. You know, one good draw deserves a bad draw after it, I suppose. If our opponent hits a land, plays a Dimir Inverter, a 6/6 here, I might just be dead. I mean, I have no way to beat through that thing. And unfortunately for us, they did it, and they did it in the right order, hitting the Fabled Passage after the Drowned Catacomb. And this is going to be problematic. They get to stack their library with 5 cards. None of which are, I mean, they're just removal. It's bad. It's bad news for us, I think. I do believe it shuffles them in, so we have to hope that they draw, say, the Fabled Passage and the Thoughtseize, but our issue is I have no idea how to win the game. I can't attack through this. Yeah, here goes. I mean, we needed them to miss. We either needed to hit last turn, I think, or have them miss land for another turn, but we just have too many lands here. I mean, look, we're looking at, what is that? Our whole deck's mana, you can't even complain when you draw mana. Just the way it goes. And there you have it, another land. Pretty, gotta say, it was a pretty clutch Hero's Downfall from our opponent. Taking out our Nissa. Little did we know that was all we were going to get. Alright, let's see if they have it, though. I have 4 cards in their library, 3 in hand. I'm doing this right this time. Here comes Thassa's Oracle number 1, I guess. Unless I'm still just blatantly misunderstanding something here. I believe that this does not win the game. However, they likely have a second Thassa's Oracle in hand, and they were probably previously missing the blue mana, which is why it didn't come down on turn 2. I think they had the Swamp and the Choked Estuary. And then on turn 3 and 4, or rather, land drops 3 and 4, they had something better to do than play this. So my guess is, whatever they did here, they looked at the top 2, they're going to have another Thassa's Oracle in hand. And, yeah, if the fact they don't attack with the Inverter of Truth almost certainly confirms that. They're not planning on winning via combat damage, and there's land number 1 billion for us. So, alright, GG's, that's the way it goes sometimes. In match 1, we had a great draw and enjoyed the benefits, in here in match 2, it's our opponent who's getting to have fun with their deck popping off. People hate the combo decks in that'll do it. People hate the combo decks in this format, and that's it's really interesting to me. I have to say, when Oath of Nissa got unbanned last week or 2 weeks ago or whatever it was, I truly expected them to ban something. And I understand they say that these decks, namely the Inverter of Truth Thassa's Oracle deck, as well as the Lotus Breach deck, don't have problematic win rates. I mean, I believe them. They're sub 50% on Magic Online, or they're right around 50%. They're not at 55%, which is when I think Wizards starts to kind of look at a red flag of a deck. They have acceptable win rates, but gosh, are they frustrating to play against. Now, I will say I don't know that it's entirely the fault of the format, or the decks themselves. Like, they're not overly powerful, but I think everyone came into Pioneer wanting it to be the golden age of Modern, and you could do whatever you want, and everyone who wasn't there when Modern started thinks you're just going to play your standard deck in it, blah, 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 and then the format turns out looks nothing like that. The standard deck you played of yesteryear is no good, both because there's actual old cards and new cards comboing, like this Inverter of Truth Thassa's Oracle deck, but also, we have to say, in 2020, the new cards are just so powerful. I'm looking at you, Uro, that your old formats aren't safe from playing standard-like cards anyways. So, what it is not is whatever nostalgic moment you had in mind that you want it to be, and what it is what it is. Where these combo decks are very good and probably the best decks in the format, but not overly broken, so what do you do about it? So, I don't know. I actually like playing against Dimir Inverter. I think it's a pretty reasonable matchup a lot of the time. I wish you could kill this to stop it from winning. I wish a Fatal Push would stop it. It doesn't if their library is empty. But either way, I think it's fine to play against, and it's a pretty To me, it's kind of like Splinter Twin. I know I'm going to turn some heads by saying that, but Dimir Inverter feels a little like Splinter Twin of the format to me. Not overly broken, but people really hate playing against it. And Wizards banned Splinter Twin, and no one's ever forgiven them for it since. So maybe that's an incorrect comparison. That's kind of where I see Pioneer. Anyways, enough of me chatting. Let's get into another match here. See if we can pick up another win. All right, this hand is what I would call speculative. However, we're on the draw. I guess we'll give it a shot here. Our opponent says, "Hey, thanks for the content. Hey, you're welcome." Okay, so Fabled Passage. We just want to land, right? We have basically everything we need to do. Oh my gosh, if I was going to ask for something that wasn't a land, I have to say that was probably it. That was silly. So this will change some stuff. It gives us our 3rd mana. Obviously, we can go Burning Tree on turn 2. We're just going to put out some threats, force our opponent to deal with them. But after that, our hand is still good. The Llanowar Elves gets us to cast the Jadelight Ranger. The Jadelight Ranger hopefully finds the lands to cast a Nissa in the Karn. And heck, we just got a game plan. Now, got to say the Fatal Push on the Llanowar Elves is a little bit of a stopper in that one, but okay. This is also a way you can play Magic the Gathering, I guess. Oh, man. Now, look, I know I've done some unlikely things on camera here on Mining Modern / Punting Pioneer in the past. Now, I think there was one time where my opponent had a Leyline of Sanctity and my first 4 draws were Thoughtseizes or something like that. I have to say, that one was probably pretty up there, but 3 Burning Trees, that's a nice high roll as well. I can't do anything with it, unfortunately. If I had that Llanowar Elves in play, heck, we could have played the Jadelight on top of that. We could have, on turn 2, put in possibly 10 power worth of things, depending on how the Jadelight Ranger went. All right, let's see what it is, though. 3 mana. Narset, Parter of Veils. Gotta say, I guess I might be drawing extra cards at some point, thanks to the Jadelight, but that's not the biggest... Not the biggest stopper here. What did they find with it? They put another Narset in their hand. So, okay, I guess. Don't care much about any of that. Really wish we'd hit a land, though. Alright, I guess this is the line. Then these are my opponents, and this one at the Narset. Now that is... Yes, I said this was a speculative hand, and between not drawing a land in our first 3 turns and our opponent having that Fatal Push, we might not get there. That was a big turn. It was a big land drop to miss. The Jadelights are great. They help you find more land drops, but they can't do anything if they're stranded in our hand, and they're not really a card that's good late. You know, setting up your land drops is something you really want to do on... Oh, no. Oh, no. What just happened? Jeez. Okay. I see you. I see you. I'm going to recap for anyone at home who's coming out of their shock just now like I am. Whew. Narset, Parter of Veils. Each opponent can't draw more than 1 card each turn. God. Dark Deal. Each player discards all the cards in their hand and draws like mini cards -1. I play this Mendical Bolus Commander deck. It kind of makes them discard 1, but it wheels, etc. And when there's a Narset out, what it does is means that we can only draw 1 card. And now my opponent's following up with another one here, the Day's Undoing, shuffling our graveyards and libraries into our, and we draw 1. We draw 1 card here. They get to draw 7. So I guess we attack for 7 though. I mean, my opponent's doing all this cycling through their deck. They need a Wrath. Oh, they're gonna... Oh my gosh, that's bad for them. Fatal pushing that? I say that's bad for them. What that suggests to me is that because they're burning spot removal on a non-lethal board, that suggests to me they don't have a sweeper. In that case, I'm going to play out this big Hydra. It's not going to be giant, but it's going to be big. I'm going to double the number of counters on this thing. And we got a 4/6. 4/5, rather. All right, well, our opponent's at 5, and we have a lot of lethal attackers here. So they do have the old Wombo combo, but if they don't have a sweeper here, we've got lethal and can maybe even beat removal, right? We can beat point removal. We have 5 damage, even if they had another Fatal Push or Eliminate or whatever you want to say for Voracious Hydra here. So they're going to need to do something. And Dark Deal I don't know if that's it, because that tells me they're digging for more. Here's a Jace. I think we might have gotten there. Now, Dark Deal, that mini -1, we don't even get to draw the 1 we get off the Days Undoing. But my opponent is passing the turn. I mean, we're doing truly nothing here, but we do have some creatures. Let's hope that the triple Burning-Tree Emissary was enough to stop our opponent, frankly, completely wombo comboing us. And it is, because Eliminate on the Voracious Hydra still leaves 5 getting through. Woo, on to game 2. That was something, I have to say. All right. Narset Days, it is a cool deck. I will give you that, friend. I don't know what the heck I'm going to do about it. Get this Pithing Needle in there. Well, this is good when we discard our hand. It's not as good when we shuffle our graveyard in. So this is good against the Dark Deal, not so good against the Days Undoing. I don't know what we want, honestly. I don't know what the answer is. It's got to be something weird. It's got to be stuff like this. That just has to be better than a big Voracious Hydra. Honestly, it might even be better than the Hydra might be better than the Ballista if we're talking X creatures here. I don't know. Is this a card? Is this really a card I want to play? Kinda is. That's a Karn board. That's fine. This is all the Karn board. I'll just leave the Meteor Golem in the Karn board. We'll just put the Pithing Needle in. I actually don't know if it's better to put your Karn board cards into your deck for games 2 and 3 if you want to draw them, or keep them in your sideboard. To me, it comes down to kind of speed. Like the Meteor Golem, I don't want that in my opening hand. I want to get that with Karn. However, in this one, I you know, with the Pithing Needle, I'm happy to have that on turn 1 or 2 or 3 so I can start a Narset. I'll keep. I may as well keep anything, right? Our opponent's just going to wheel us every turn. We really are playing Commander. All right. Do you think they got a Fatal Push over there? I mean, it doesn't really matter. I think I have to pay off the Fatal Push. I got to get out of their hand. Oh, and look at that. They don't have it. It's the Opt. They shocked themselves for the Opt, and I am down for that, especially since they went in on bottom, so I suppose they got value out of their Scry, but this is huge. If we get to untap anyways, that's huge. Because Nykthos, by the way, legendary land. So having 2 of them in our hand, actually pretty dead. That said, our elf survived. We drew another one just in case, and here's a little Jadelight. Go try to find us some other stuff. Honestly, just put this in my graveyard. I want lands. Those aren't lands, so we'll just put them in the graveyard. Whatever, we'll make this thing a 4/3. It is a bit of a beatdown, but like I said, I want to find lands with these Jadelight Rangers. I want to make keep making land drops. So bottom, so that hopefully we draw one and can play Karn here. So this is what it was all about. Unfortunately, it did not quite work out that way. Thinking, I think I can play Karn this turn. All right, hear me out. Tap the Nykthos for mana. Play the new Nykthos. Keep the new Nykthos. We have 1 mana floating. Play the Llanowar Elves. We then have 4 Devotion. We then use the Elvish Mystic and the floating mana to activate the new Nykthos. And we have 4 mana. I can play either Karn or Vivien. Okay. This might not matter at all if my opponent has counter magic. I mean, they probably do, but maybe their hand's full of Narsets and Dark Deals. I have no idea. I have no idea what they're doing. I'm going to go for it, though. Why not, right? Is it Karn or Vivien? I think it's Karn. Because Karn's the one that takes time to minus and then have more mana. Ooh, it just worked. Until your next turn, target non-creature artifact, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I never read that before, and I don't need to. We're going to see what we got outside the game here. I really don't know what to get, though. Right? That's the thing. I have no clue what my opponent is doing with their mana. I have no clue what they're up to in general. So what do I really want here? What if I took something just silly, like Tormod's Crypt, so that if my opponent were to try to shuffle their library, that can't be the play, though. It's just so silly, right? I have no idea what to get here. I'm playing Karn because, hey, it's good to do this. But what do we want to do? I want to land, really. I've seen some versions of. I'm sorry, I had a camera here. I've seen some versions with this deck that play a Darksteel Citadel on their sideboard, so you can go fetch a land. I was like, I'm never really going to want to fetch a land, right? Obviously, this is the situation where I would desperately love to fetch a land. That's funny. That said, though, look, we have another Jadelight. We're doing okay here. We have the Oath of Nissa, so I think we can, and we have a Nykthos, so I think we can actually infer that we're going to get to some kind of big mana play pretty soon. So, with that said, the one I think I want, the God-Pharaoh statue. It's certainly a scary one. Honestly, I expected my opponent to counter that. That's what I thought was going to happen there, and I was then going to follow up with the Vivien next turn. And just start the beatdown. I expected that Karn to bait something out. Instead it didn't, and I guess that's good. We have this God-Pharaoh statue, and Karn's down, Hero's Downfall. That's even worse for my opponent. It's the worst of all worlds. They had the answer to Karn, but it's the one that comes after I get something. Now, Languish on all of my board here is pretty good. I'd love to hit a land. Slam this Jadelight. Not a land. Alright, Oath of Nissa saved me. The forest. I guess we've been saved. Sort of. I mean, this is still, as you can tell, obviously pretty problematic. Not being able to play land there was rough. Well, you've got some options, friend, with this Thoughtseize. I don't know if we're going to be able to beat the Languish, but we might. I mean, we have a Planeswalker, 2 Planeswalkers, and probably 1 after this, but we have the Jadelight to find lands. This God-Pharaoh statue will be annoying to them. I mean, I guess it makes them lose a life. They took the Jadelight, and now they're going to play Narset. Okay. This is a risky play by my opponent, because if I hit a land here, it's pretty bad for them. I've been talking so much about a Karn board. There's also some cards in there that make it a Vivien board, if we want to go get a Scavenging Ooze or Hydra or whatever. Land? Both a land and an uncastable card, huh? This might not be our game. Nothing. Well, now we know Languish is their sweeper of choice, though. That's actually something that is fairly relevant to me, as we get Wombo comboed here by Days Undoing Narset. It's like, hey, I had cards I can't play, now I have cards I can. Thanks, friend. Unfortunately, they have 7 cards, and they can probably play all of them. That's a neat combo. I'll give them that. I pulled it off in Commander once, I think. I had some kind of Narset in a wheel. Languish. Okay, so Languish is good to know, because if we think back to that Karn turn here, we had a Burning-Tree Emissary in play. This is a 2/2. This Elvish Mystic is a 2. Alright, the Languish gives all creatures -4/-4. So it would have killed him regardless of whether we played Vivien and put 2 counters on it, but it is something to keep in mind for the future. 5 toughness is going to be the magic amount against this deck if we get to a game 3 here. Meanwhile, this resolves. I have nowhere to put counters, but hey, I guess I can minus my Vivien next turn and go get a creature. Almost wish I had one of those sweet can't be countered creatures in my sideboard. There's some kind of mono green Hydra that has protection. Mistcutter Hydra, I think, has protection from blue and can't be countered and has haste. Quite powerful against a deck like this. Meanwhile, Noxious Grasp can answer the Vivien. I think we're pretty dead here. Yeah, that's good enough for me. My opponent has 6 cards in hand and a Narset in play. We're going nowhere fast there. All right, let's try again. I don't know. Y'all, I can't say I've ever played against this deck before, but it seems like it is doing its thing. I'd like to go first this time. All right. And now we're getting somewhere, all right? Now I have a good hand. Or at least a solid hand, anyways. In fact, I think it might be a hand that can play a turn 3 Nissa. It's going to depend what we draw here with this turn 2 Jadelight. Definitely all about this Nissa, though. And if we get it on turn 3, I feel great. If we get it on turn 4, probably a little less so. Or we get it not at all, because our opponent has the Thoughtseize. Fair enough. I'm not even confident that... I mean, they probably take Nissa here. Maybe they just take the Jadelight, though. They did it. They took the Jadelight. It was a good play for them, frankly, because that Jadelight was going to add 2 devotion to my Nykthos. It was going to be quite good. Now, Unfortunately for them, I hit another land, so I get to, I guess, at least keep playing the game a little bit here. All right, let's get in. I mean, the Thoughtseize actually, I mean, that did, the Watery Grave and the Thoughtseize dealt 4 to them already. So along with the Llanowar Elves, it's a turn 1 Lava Axe. That's certainly something. There's the Eliminate on the Elves, while they are all in on taking our mana away, huh? That is a strategy. It is a risky strategy, because if we do things like just draw lands, as you see us doing, there's not a lot they can do about that. So that's, I mean, that said, they are still controlling our board a little bit here. We'll get in for 1. They can't languish us next turn. I can play this. What do I do? Am I really supposed to play the Voracious Hydra out? X equals 1, make it a 2/3? I'm gonna be honest, I kind of think I am. Because our opponent, each of the games we've played so far, has completely decimated our hand, no matter what we do. And while they're not going to be able to languish for 2 turns here, and even if we waited a turn, this is a big consideration. If we wait a turn, that Hydra still falls to a languish. But this punishes our opponent the most if they're stumbling. And given that, you know, our hand is subject to change at any time, land plus Nissa being just 1 land away from the Nissa, well, that seems like the path we want to try to get as many things out and force our opponent to have all pieces of the combo, right? The sweeper half, I say half, the sweeper third, the Narset third, and the hand draw discard, the wheel is the third, because as we saw in game 1, wheeling us and destroying our hand doesn't do much if you're just dead. The other reason, by the way, that it made sense to play out this Hydra on the turn that we did last turn as opposed to this turn is that this turn we actually, if we draw land, sort of the quote-unquote worst-case scenario, we still have something to do with our mana, which is to pump this Walking Ballista. Otherwise, we weren't going to do anything with our mana at all, either last turn or this turn, right? One way or another, it was not going to work out quite the way we wanted it to. Now, in this case, we sink 4 mana into it. Our opponent burns an Eliminate on it, but that means they're getting beat down by the Voracious Hydra. They traded for the Ballista, dealt 1 to them. Sure, great. We can untap into Nissa. So our opponent is certainly up against it here, right? They are going to Fatal Push down the Voracious Hydra. They're just all in on playing this game fairly, huh? Well, if that 2 mana counters Nissa, that play might work for them. If not, the beatdown is going to begin. That resolved very quickly. All right, we'll turn this crazy, like, what is this? This is cool. Ether Revolt, I think it is. Kaladesh, one of those 2. It's like a little path. A little path through the forest. Straight to 3 damage to your face, friend. I think I'll just play this thing. Because why not? I'm gonna get wheeled away anyways at some point. Come on. And we'll just play, I guess we'll just name Narset in the dark here. This is not Sorceress Spyglass. So we cannot look at their hand to see what to hit. Nor do we know if hitting Narset Part or Veils actually even kind of, you know, quote unquote does anything, because it's static ability that's actually the combo piece here. The minus is just value for them. But let's attack the value at least. So see if they find any answers here. It doesn't look like it. I guess let's just attack. I mean, I'll lose my mana here. That's fine. Yeah, I mean, I did it that way. I don't think it matters, though, because we lose out the mana. And I'm not just trying to... This is not a Walking Ballista, right? I'm not just trying to make it huge. I just want to get in with my creatures. I mean, for 6, by the way. We are quite ahead at this point. I'm going to cast this thing... Well, the thing is, this is going to beat a Languish, and so's the Nissa in play. So I think just slamming a giant creature that they have to deal with is probably pretty reasonable here. X equals 7. It's going to be just this. I mean, it's a one-shot kill, obviously, at this point. Thing's a 14-15. But, I mean, look, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 lethal cards in play with my opponent at 2. Notion Thief. Their deck is... You gotta say, though, They committed to the theme. Good for them. Notion Thief plus Wheel, please. Notion Thief plus Ashiok. I don't think that one's good enough, though. It is a cool blue. It is definitely an interesting spin on blue-black control. I got to give them that. That's pretty neat. I enjoy it. I think Ashiok, by the way, is a very powerful card. 5 mana is a lot, but a little above the sweet spot for a Planeswalker, but still very good. And it's got some nice abilities, and I think it's going to find a place in Standard post-rotation. And I'd love to see it find a place in Pioneer. I don't know if this deck is where it's going to happen, but that was a cool deck for my opponent. GG's. All right, so I got to say, after playing this deck, I don't know that I would change anything specifically. I didn't get a ton of games in with it, per se. I will say that the 4 Karns maybe felt a little much, just because I never really got much out of the Karn board. I mean, the Karn/Vivien board. So I think that that's all pretty adjustable. You could go with a more straightforward sideboard if you wanted. But this is definitely the Planeswalker angle of attack with the Karn. You can tailor it however you want. The ability to tutor things out of your sideboard is enormously powerful, even if it's slow, with the Vivien and the Karn. So, I mean, there are 8 4-drops. I wonder if, I guess I would have to think back to the sets in Pioneer, figure out what our other options are. Maybe there's any 3-mana Planeswalkers we might be able to slot in, because as you can see, the deck is a little light on 3s. But overall, that's kind of the only thing I would maybe suggest looking at. The deck felt very powerful to me. I mean, it's a mono green ramp deck with Nissa, right? That's what it does. But I have to say, Oath of Nissa was sorely missed in a deck like this, and it is very powerful. So if this is your jam, maybe look in that direction moving forward. But otherwise, everybody, thank you so much for watching. I'm Corbin Hosler, and I'll see you next week.